welcome back to Consider This. Melisa, Sharaad and Ibrahim on the show today, and we're looking back at the year past. Now, 2019 also marks 30 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall. November 9th, 1989 was a pivotal event in world history, which also marked the falling of the Iron Curtain. Then the fall of the inner German border took place shortly afterwards, and the end to the Cold War was declared at the Malta summit 3 weeks later. The reunification of Germany took place the following year. So I guess, putting into motion a whole series of events that changed the world, to change world history. Sharaad, what did this milestone anniversary mean for you?
I think with everything, Melisa, when we look at history, history is a great way to learn about how human societies progress or change. Now, that was a dramatic moment, but the pains of that moment were felt for decades. In fact, it continues today, and I think a lot of the politics of Germany today often kind of can be mapped onto the old map of Germany,
yes,
of a divided Germany. So the East Germans and their politics and so on and so forth. And I think we need to learn in Malaysia that reform and the reform agenda is a long process, that many of the dynamics that have been set over the last 6 decades are not going to be overturned in a year and a half, never mind one electoral cycle.
We are an impatient lot, aren't we?
We are, and I think a lot of us haven't taken the time to understand this electoral process. We've tried to do it on our show, on my show, Let's Talk, where we've interviewed people about the reform agenda and how it will proceed and what the challenges are. I mean, Ibrahim,
the reform takes place over a period of time. Even in Germany, there's still some issues with neo-Nazi and many others, right? While many of the Germans today, want to forget about the whole Nazi episode of the 1940s, 1930s, many aspects of Germany still has or harbor that kind of ambition. We have a CEO here in an insurance company in Malaysia. He's a naturalized German. He was born in India. He's now a German citizen, and the insurance company is a German company. He can't go to some parts of Germany still, simply because of his skin color. So it's not just about, German has changed.
So the other thing, of course, is we're also celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Weimar Republic. Now, this was the kind of post-imperial German republic that was this wonderful period, and it was very volatile, because I've read about it, volatile period, a lot of hope, great kind of initiatives on so many levels of flourishing of culture, but also the emergence of the seeds and the emergence of the Nazi period. So there's complexity. I mean, that's, I think, what we all learn when we read history, is that it's actually a complex little thing, very messy. And so while we remember some of the worst aspects, to say, of the very long German history, but there are also very positive moments.
Sure.
And the Weimar Republic is one of them.
How they came out of this. And I think there are lessons to be learned here in Malaysia as well, looking at Germany. But I also want to take a quick look at another milestone anniversary. 50 years ago, on July 20th, 1969, humanity set foot on the surface of another world for the first time. 50 years ago, astronauts walked on the moon for the first time.
Using technology that is so primitive, your phone has like 100 times better than what they have.
And I think this is such a wonderful story, because it's the past 50 years, and then now what next with the next 50 years, right?
Well, what next with the next 50 years, unfortunately, is a much more grim picture, Melisa. We all know there is no planet B. There's no plan B for planet. There is no the fantasies in media about, in movies, of leaving this planet that we are destroying to go to a better place. It's just not going to happen. We have to, and we're reminded that we have to take care of planet Earth. We're not doing it. This has been a bad year in terms of displaying the kind of willpower to deal with the climate crisis.
I was listening to the podcast, 13 Minutes to the Moon by the BBC.
Nice. Yeah.
It is a fantastic, phenomenal story. It talks about how humanity came together, tried to, of course, it was all against the backdrop of the Cold War. Russians were going to get it first, Americans, many others. But eventually, it's the impact of this particular landing, right? It brought the whole world together. Iron Curtain was still there. Communism is on the rise in China, with Mao Zedong and many others, JFK. In fact, domestically, there's a lot of issues with America as well. This part of the world, we are still grappled with communism in this country at that particular time. And yet, we came together as one, as humankind, and celebrated and rejoiced this, including the Chinese and the Russians and the many others that were, politically opposed to what America is trying to do.
And I think that's great, right? Having this kind of unifying force, the idea that let's rally together and see what humankind can bring, as opposed to being, demarcated into race and religion.
Yeah, we're divided. I think this is the story of Malaysia, right? We're a house divided at a time when we actually had to get together and to deal with many issues, both local and global. I mean, there are many things that we are not in control of. We expect the government to solve all our problems, it seems, including the economy, which is, of course, another issue. It's a huge topic to be discussed in terms of what's happened to the economy and whether the current government has a real sense of direction. We've had all kinds of weird revisits. We had a third national car project that nobody seems to think is a great idea.
It's going to cost us 850 million, apparently.
Some people in government think is good, but that seems to be, some individuals on a loop, actually.
Well, okay, so as we wrap up the show, I want to kind of ask both of you where you think Malaysia is heading next year. And, just looking at the trajectory of this past year, we've been very fixated on the nitty-gritty, the granular, that we almost have forgotten some of the big picture stuff. And I'm hoping that this show actually makes us refocus a little bit and think about some of the big picture conversations that we've had this year.
Yes, I agree. We have to look forward and look ahead. Elon Musk plans to land on Mars. The use of AI.
Just him personally? I think many people will be grateful if Elon Musk just blasts himself into...
AI is going to be a big thing. If you use Facebook or any other social media platforms, you're not talking to a human being any longer. Things are being automated. We look at how Internet of Things is actually trying to improve on plantations in Malaysia. All the palm oil trees are going to be fitted with some 5G device. These are going to be big things that we need to get ourselves equipped, And I think if we think that today's problems, economy, grappling about the nitty-gritty issue and stuff. If we focus ourselves on technology, on improving ourselves in science and maths, we are going to be helping ourselves in 2020.
Okay. What about you, Sharaad?
I don't know if technology is a solution for all our problems. I think it's also the political will and imagination and I'd like to see a truly new narrative that was promised by the Pakatan Harapan government. Still, I think under the leadership of Dr. Mahathir, still quite listless and directionless, at least in terms of creating that narrative that's inclusive, that says that all Malaysians have a future in this country. That, I think, is something I'd like to see next year really kind of hone in on.
Okay, well, and for me personally, it's going to be the environment. I think we've seen quite a number of extraordinary cases to do with the environment in Malaysia this year and globally, and I'm heartened to see that the conversation about climate change was, spearheaded by a young 16-year-old girl, and it was a conversation that we're still having, regardless of some of the kind of nonsensical debate that goes around Greta Thunberg. But I still think it's wonderful that it's part of the conversation that we are having this year. I'm hoping that this conversation will continue next year, and that the Malaysian government will have a kind of a show of will that they are willing to. This is a bipartisan, non-partisan issue, and one that we can all get behind, I think, for a better planet. All right, guys, that's the end of the show. We're going to come back tomorrow and take a look at what to expect for 2020. I'm Melisa Idris, with me, Sharaad, Kuttan, and Ibrahim, Sani, signing off. Happy New Year.